board meeting to order. Look for approval of the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I'm going to skip back up to one. Please have your cell phone silence during the meeting, please. Item 3, public appearances and citizens' comments. Item not listed on this agenda. No debate will occur. Items will not be acted upon at this meeting, but we will refer to the proper staff or committee if action is required. Is there anyone that would like to speak on anything other than what we're here for tonight? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business. Consideration discussion of school district law to dedicate public street right away in the vicinity of 11th Avenue to provide access to new school and 11th. The board may consider and discuss other access points as well. And whoever signed up to speak will have their opportunity during this part of the agenda. But for now, I think we'll ask the school to make the presentation.
You'll just have to push on them. It's just not there. That's me. And then push it all the way up. Kathleen, got it. All right. First of all, thank you for having us here tonight to discuss the road access points to the new 4K-13 primary school. I'm Jennifer Davis, superintendent of the New Blair School District. Last time we were here in July, we presented a possible solution for access points to the new school. At the time, the village board had questions about whether the proposal was the best solution and requested additional information, especially regarding Linlock and Lakewood Valley. In good faith, we went back and explored all of the options in more depth, including having traffic engineers conduct intersection site distance analysis and safety studies in both locations. In your village board packet are the studies of Linlock and Lakewood Valley in their entirety, as well as a letter about the various access points written by Gray Architects, who we have been working with since we referendum. We have summarized the extensive documentation provided in the board packet into a succinct PowerPoint, which is in front of you. I will share a couple slides of brief background information, then two board members from our school board, Travis Zimmerman and Corinne Henderson, who are both village residents and also live in the area of the primary school, will walk through the pros and cons of the 5 different access points to the property. And finally, Board President Bill Olton will share a brief summary. After that, we'll take questions from the board. We have many experts who have been studying these access points for many months in the room tonight, and they are here to help answer questions. They include Don Lee from TADI, which is Traffic Analysis and Design Incorporated, who did the completed site distance analysis and safety studies, Andrew Kerr from Gray Architects, Jim Lundberg from Point of Beginning Engineering, and Chad Wade, our village attorney, our school district attorney. So we will first start with the PowerPoint and talk about the site goals. You can't hear that? Sorry. Testing.
You gotta be really close.
Testing.
Test.
Here, you go. Testing. Now you have. Now can you hear me? Okay. So the primary school site criteria. First of all, we've all along been looking at safety. We've been trying to provide separation between pedestrians and vehicles, provide separation between cars and buses, provide 2 access points of access for village emergency services, and meet all local and state ordinances and engineering requirements for our public road. In regard to access, we have been trying to provide access from both the north and the south, preserve access to the site for future development, and create a neighborhood school for pedestrians and cyclists. The site access options, the potential access points were evaluated during the referendum and with the community. During that referendum, as you can see on the bottom, it says 10th Avenue and 8th Street and 11th Avenue were approved at referendum with 70% community approval. Right after that, that was in April of 21. Then we continued additional planning with village engineers, which began right away in May. Again, there are 2 north options, 10th Avenue, Heights Drive, 3 south options, Legler Valley, Winlock, and 8th Street and 11th Avenue.
Hello, everyone. My name is Travis Lerman. I've been on the school board for 8 years, as a resident of Blair's for about 10 to 11, and spent the better part of my life here growing up. I'm going to go through the access points. The first few that are near my home. The first one is 10th Avenue. The pros, it's community approved. It provides access from 6th Avenue and Highway 6 or 39. Does not require a turn lane from Highway 39 per Wisconsin DOT. It can be converted into a future village street. It provides new village right-of-way to the west, and it requires minimal grade adjustment. It's selected as the north access point. Second access point is Heights Drive. Pros, it is a future village street / right-of-way. Cons, it does not provide access from the south, and it is redundant to 10th Avenue access point. The third access point is Legler Valley Road. The pros, limits traffic in the Tower Heights neighborhood, provides access from the south. The cons, combination of hill, curve, and narrow road create dangerous sightlines. The traffic engineer is quoted as, based on site distance analysis and the safety of the public, a school access driveway is not recommended. From the village engineer, Legler Valley Road is currently substandard for intended traffic for the primary school. It was rejected by the traffic engineer, civil engineers, and architects as unsafe.
I am Bree Henderson. I have been on the school board for 2 years, and I've been a resident of New Blair for 19 now. So access point number 4 is Winlock Street. It's the pros, it does provide access from the south. The cons, it does not comply with village ordinance for future public road. Required offset of 12th Avenue places the right-of-way on property not owned by the district. So in the picture, that little spot, it says private property, it is not ours, and that is the dashed line down. Right turn only exit limits function and creates potential for accidents. The traffic engineer says, without enforcement to restrict the left turn out movement, people will likely make the unsafe movement on a regular basis. This would affect pedestrians and would also affect people coming from the other direction. Does not address traffic concerns within the neighborhood. Point 5, 8th Street and 11th Avenue. The pros, it was supported by the electors during the referendum. It provides access from the south. It provides redundant point of access. It meets all Wisconsin DOT and village engineering standards and sightlines. It provides a controlled four-way intersection. The traffic study was approved and connects to the village's comprehensive planned roads. The cons is the potential encroachment along the northern right-of-way that must be resolved for the public road.
Good evening, I'm Bill Wilmington, I'm the New Glarus School Board President. I live in the town of New Glarus, but both my children live here in the village of New Glarus. And I just have 2 slides to review with you. The first shows the access points changing grade. And we just wanted you to have a perspective of the changing grade for each of the 3 access points. And I want to particularly note with Winlock that if the access point was moved further to the south, that change in grade would be up closer to about 45 feet as opposed to the current 25 feet. So I want to point that out, because there's considerable difference in grade between each of those 3 sites. Now, 10th Avenue, we did not put on here, there's a considerable grade there, but it's over a much longer distance than what there really exists for each of those 3 access And then to the last slide. You'll see there are 10 primary considerations the school board has been looking at. I've got the same sheet Travis does. Hang on one second. 10 primary considerations, and these have been debated by the school board over a series of meetings. We've been talking about this issue, at least as long as the village has, for a little bit longer. We've had a number of meetings, published meetings, open meetings on these where the public was invited to participate. And the 10 key considerations are, does it meet village ordinance? Does it meet WSDOT standards, Wisconsin Department of Transportation? Does it provide safe sightlines, walkability, can become a public road, allows future development, voter approved, recommended for conditional approval, access from north, access from south. So you see the 10 considerations there and how each of the potential access points line up. And you can see why from the school board perspective and from the district administration perspective, we think the access point at 8th Avenue and 11th Street is the one that makes the most sense. And I want to point out again, this has been through a lot of consideration by the school board. Dr. Thayer opened it up and said that we looked at all these in good faith when the village board denied the request for a variance back in July, I believe that was. We went back and looked at, could we do Legend Valley? Is Legend Valley possible? And our expert advisors, our engineers said, no, it can't be done there. And from the school board's perspective, we believe safety has to be the most important consideration. And so that's why the school board is back with both Legler and Winlock saying it doesn't meet our needs like 8th and 11th would, and therefore we're back in front of you requesting that approval. So with that, that's the end of our presentation. We want to keep it purposely short. We will be open to questions, and our experts are here as well. And we yield it back to Mr. President, how you want to motion to do. Thank you for the opportunity for that.
Thank you.
Does anyone from the board have any questions or presenters?
The entrance to
Hey, turn the mic on,
the entrance to closer. The entrance to 8th and 11th. I noticed in the notes here had to be 60 feet, correct? And is it 60 feet?
Yes, that is our understanding that they'll have to be 60 foot, basically from one side to the other, they have to be 60 feet, yes.
Had it is 60 feet, so it meets that criteria. The other item that I wanted to discuss in your notes is that, in your letter was that the proposal for Lever Valley was $2.1 million.
That came
Is
from.
that
That came from your staff.
Okay, $2.1 million, that's what it is. I would like to have a detailed cost proposal as to what we get for $2.1 million, as opposed to what we're going to invest in those entranceways at those. I just want to see a comparable. You know, if it's $2.1 million at Leveler, what's it going to be for all those others and those retaining walls and all of that?
Yeah.
I would like to see just, you know, how much that would cost. Let's see, what else is there down here? Okay, one more thing, I lost my train of thought here. My other concern is, as you mentioned before, that the school district is expecting to expand at some point, as well as adding Heights Road, which would then access perhaps a subdivision. My concern is all of that traffic is going to enter at that access point over time. And so we will, I think, eventually have to turn Lever Valley into a standard road, which you say is substandard. There are a lot of substandard roads that are easily fixed into standard roads. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's very correct.
You can take a substandard road, and fix it. And I know living on Durst, so sorry, when they redid Durst years ago, they were gonna put a sidewalk in where that ditch is, and they were gonna put a sidewalk along there, but, you know, at that point we said, well, it was gonna be a sidewalk to nowhere. So engineers were planning on a sidewalk in a ditch area, whereas the notes say it can't possibly be done. Well, it was in the plans 30 years ago that a sidewalk would be able to be fixed there. So when you're talking a substandard road, what does that mean?
Well, I can start out maybe. This is Carl Brown.
I've got a lot of things on my mind.
Administrator, you know, I guess maybe substandard is, I might have used that word in my notes or something. It's not, I mean, it's just a rural town road. And so it's built to those standards, you know, I mean, as people know here, but probably better than I. It's a narrow road, it has ditches, it doesn't have curb and gutter, it doesn't have the width of a typical section, urban section we have in the village, meant for urban purposes. So an urban section of road would be a road that generally is at least 32 feet wide, maybe up to 36 feet wide, depending on, you know, the traffic, potential future traffic projections if that area were to develop more or something. So it would be curb and gutter for drainage. It would have storm sewer, potentially adjacent to it, stormwater detention to deal with stormwater in the area. It would have a crown and V shape such that, you know, the drainage came out to the curb and gutter. It would have sanitary sewer, water underneath it for future development or development that would need sewer and water. It wouldn't almost, you know, again, kind of going back to your comments previous about my notes talking about ditches and sidewalks. I mean, it's certainly possible if you have enough right of way, enough room to put in sidewalks on a rural section of road with ditches, as long as you are protecting the pedestrians such that they aren't going to fall into the ditch. And you've got your grades and stuff, so forth, set such that it's safe. But typically, when you're doing sidewalks, you would do it on an urban section of road with curb and gutter, with hopefully a terrace. You don't have to have it, but a grass or a turf terrace of some sort, and then a sidewalk over with your feet depending on traffic. And so, and then obviously, or not, maybe not so obviously, when you're doing an urban section of road, we'd also be paying attention to site distances. You know, if there were grades that needed to be changed, curvatures and so forth in the road that needed to be straightened out a little bit. You know, moving the roadway around up and down to be able to create better site distance and a safer environment. So, and then also the $2 million, you know, sort of rough estimate for Legler was, you know, planning to do those things. And it was also planned to create that urban section all the way out to the end of the school district property. You wouldn't have to the west. You wouldn't have to do that, but I think if you know that were a chosen option, you would want to do that, or this is an opinion, but maybe somewhat professional, that by creating that urban section, you're also kind of telling people, I'm coming to a different part, I'm coming into a community, I'm coming out of a rural town road, in that environment of driving and maybe higher speed limits and so forth. I'm now coming into something different, you know, so you've got the curb and gutter, you've got the sidewalks, you've got the road wider and so forth, and coming into a school zone, so it presents people with that, you know, kind of sort of get to that. But I guess what I was trying to say is that you wouldn't have to set up that urban section all the way out to the end of the property, and could, although it would be substandard, getting to your point finally, substandard to village standards to build a rural section. You could improve a rural section there. I mean, build a wider road. I don't know how wide it is now, but it's, you can build it to 22 feet or 30 feet or however much road we have. Reshape the ditches. Get enough room for the sidewalks and build, for lack of a better word, a better rural section for less money. I just don't think it considerably less money. It could be because of hanging your hat on these numbers, but it could be $750,000 to do a better rural section up there. I just don't think that is what one would want to do, because I think that just in terms of preparing for development opportunities that might occur, if that was approved, you'd want to kind of spend the money necessary to build it to the type of section that would meet those standards.
That 2.1 million, then, is that just a guesstimate? Was that something?
I guess it's better than a guesstimate. It took some analysis by the village engineer to be able to come up with that number, but it's certainly not to the point of saying, hey, this is a solid number. It's just sort of to give the community an idea of, sort of probable costs. And I didn't mean to take your,
That's
if you had more to add,
No, that's
feel free
exactly what it is.
And then
keep you out of the limelight for
Don't worry about it.
we just did 90 Avenue, how much was that, 107?
Overall, it was about 1.4. 1.4.
So this would be 1.2 perhaps.
Yeah, 2.1. And like Carl said, with stormwater, because it is a rural section, the NEMA requires that the village would then have to do some post-construction stormwater for quality control. In addition. So, more than likely, some land would have to be acquired to put some type of stormwater EMP, more than likely on the south side of Lakeland. So,
So as we move, as we will grow then, we could assume that whether might turn into a more standardized road in order to access other developments that might be out that way. I mean,
yeah,
perhaps that's the stuff.
I would expect that as time moves on.
Well, the village would have to invest for someone.
At some point, either the village or if there's a large development west and they want services, they would have to invest in that.
What would the capacity of the village be to, if that were to happen, to incorporate Liquid Valley Road into our current, street project?
what would that mean?
Yeah.
I think it would mean, well, the village is currently, although we haven't made any final decisions, the village is, thinking about potential for about 1.5 to 1.6, somewhere in that vicinity project next year is a reconstruction project, and it might be that, we'd have to reorder some of our plans in terms of some of the street work we're planning and other capital improvements in order to be able to incorporate that project in. So, we talked about in the past about somewhere in the vicinity probably of $10 million in borrowing capacity over the next several years and kind of identify some of the projects in there, but not all of them. So that would just possibly, that would take up a portion of the village's internal borrowing capacity to be able to bring that project in, but it's certainly not undoable. It's just we would have to reorder some of our priorities in terms of some of the projects we were doing in the near term, in the next couple of years. I think another thing I should mention, although it's certainly not a game stopper at all, but that area, would require, we can't serve it with gravel sanitary sewer, because of the grades we're dealing with, or the elevations, I should say. And so we would have to make, put a force main in, which doesn't mean anything more than what we'd be using an iron ductile pipe, maybe a little larger than we might usually use. I don't know if we use 8 inch or 10 inch or something. But to be able to then in the future put in a booster station to be able to literally force the sewage up. So it's not a huge additional cost, but it's, something we would be dealing with. We'd be preparing for that and designing that road and the sanitary sewer to be able to serve it with a booster station. Did you have something on there? So that's another.
With all those considerations of investing all that, everything would have to be happening afterwards, the restrictions, sewage and everything. How would that affect any development? Assuming if we were to do this, there would be a lot of, hopefully more people developing out that way. How would, the sewage issue, would that help with those developments as well, or would they be faced with doing that themselves?
I think if it's shown that if there's infrastructure available, that's kind of one of the largest things, right, in the developer looks at. What's the cost to get the utilities out here? What's the cost of the infrastructure in order to service the sanitary sewer with water, to be able to get our emergency services out there and so forth? So if those things are there, it certainly makes the potential for development easier to think about.
Yeah, I guess I would just add, like I said before, typically when a developer is going, there's a large development in one area, they're usually relied on to bring whatever services to that area that takes the burden off of the village, so that the village can address other needs in the community with the funds they have. But it's a fine balance.
That's a good point. Otherwise, the developer would, if the development wanted to go in that area, they would need to make provisions and potentially pay for those improvements themselves.
I think there's a little important point here that might get a little complicated with Lakeland, because it starts in the village, goes to the township, back to the village again. So, we gotta get the township involved if we go down that road. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's something that's gotta be looked at also.
Yes.
For the board, offhand, maybe if you're aware, do you know what the cost is? I know when the referendum went through, it was supposed to be zero increase for the taxpayer. What is the cost for those, the 10th Avenue and the 11th and 8th entryways? Do you know offhand what that would cost?
I don't know if that's broken out to that level of specificity, but I can give some generalizations.
Okay.
So for the school to go down the hills of Lakeland Valley, there would be an increase in about 600 linear feet of roadway, which would cost the district about $250,000. That's in addition to the $2.1 million we were just discussing. The budget plan for connection at 8th and the connections. So the connection that we want would be somewhat more expensive because there's a little bit more grade to deal with, and the road would be a little bit longer. There would probably be an increase of somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to go down to it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wondered if the investment in those entryways that you were investing in was equal to or in excess of a $2.1 million potential development. I was just trying to
so
what the expenses are going to be.
yeah, and obviously the entrances that are part of the referendum plan are paid part of that program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And trustee Cruz, if I could just add on to it, I would just note that last Monday night, the school board map actually reduced the mill levy by 0.25. So we actually brought down the tax rate. And I will also point out that it's very cost sensitive because every $200,000 in additional expense is another cost that we have to give up. It's about the approximate cost of that.
Okay, does anyone from the board have any more questions? If not, I guess we'll move to the public comments. So, if I call your name, you certainly speak. First one is Sue Gallagher. Pardon? Nothing? Okay. Bill Wellington? Is that your name? Monica Gilbert?
Oh, I circled her in United States.
Okay, Ray, would you like to speak?
I circled mine to pray.
So, I am in favor of what the referendum asked for. My concern is sidewalks. I live at 1119 8th Street. I have 2 grandchildren that walk home from school on the road. So my question is, with the village, what would be the sidewalk plan? Is there a plan with the village? And would that include a school safety grant to perhaps offset the cost of sidewalks? So that.
Pat, would you like to speak to us, please? Is there any? Well, do we want to, I suppose it's discussion. I mean, what are the plans for sidewalks? I mean, do we have anything in the ordinance as far as?
Well, the village does not have an overall sidewalk plan, other than, they instituted recently that during construction projects, sidewalk be put in.
Yeah.
This is a plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. Well, some right now have a map showing like when other parts of sidewalk will be placed. But yeah, it's a plan with, as we go along with the construction projects.
I've always thank you. So, I mean, I think your point well taken, sidewalks for pedestrians, especially children walking to school, sidewalks make a lot of sense, for sure, I think. But sidewalks can, just to be kind of straight out about it, sidewalks can be very, very controversial, especially when they're retrofitted into a neighborhood. And so in probably my, 34 or 35 years of being a city and a village administrator, I don't think I've seen issues that get as hot as sidewalks being put in an existing neighborhood. And that's not to say that it shouldn't happen or it can't happen, but the backbone that a political body sometimes has to have to put sidewalks into a neighborhood that doesn't have sidewalks, and property owners who come out, just like you all, taking time out of your busy lives tonight, to have and say, we don't want sidewalks. Not to say everyone would say that, but I would venture to guess that there'll be quite a few people who will not want to see sidewalks in front of their home. Or if they do, they'll be saying things like, well, the village better shovel the snow. We don't want the snow. And so I think that the village will need to probably want to consider installing sidewalks in subdivisions that are adjacent to the school. At least have routes to school for children to be able to safely walk back and forth. It may not be everywhere on every street, but here are the safe routes to school that the village has established to get back and forth to the school. But the village will also have to face, I am quite sure, residents who do not want those sidewalks. Maybe not, I could be totally wrong, I guess time will tell. But it's hard to withstand sometimes that political pressure for people who don't want something, even though many people seem, well, there's a greater good or a greater public good or something potentially for that. The other difficulty is that, or can be, or challenge, not insurmountable by any stretch of the imagination, but a challenge is retrofitting subdivisions that weren't planned for sidewalks can be difficult in terms of dealing with the grade. So the village probably in most of those cases has enough right of way. I mean, the streets are probably, the village generally has 60 to 66 feet of owned property, although a lot of people don't recognize that there's probably 15 feet outside of the curb that belongs to the village. And people don't think of that because you mow it and break the leaves right now and do all those things, and you just presume it's your property, and then the village comes in and says, well, I think we're going to put sidewalks in here. We have 15 feet of right of way, enough to put in a 5-foot sidewalk, allow for a 7 or 8 foot terrace, grass terrace, and install the sidewalks. But if there's a lot of grade issues that if sidewalks weren't thought about when the roads were put in, it means that the village has to do some cutting and either cutting the grades down and putting in retaining walls potentially in order to allow for those sidewalks, or having undulating sidewalks that look kind of funny. And I can attest to that because at one point in my career I worked in Barrow. The community is quite a bit like New Glarus in some ways. You're built either side of the bluff. And we retrofitted sidewalks as the village board for the city council actually needed to say, we're putting sidewalks everywhere. They're just going in. And the result was kind of interesting because of all the ups and downs and trying to deal with those grades. But so I'm not trying to say in a long-winded way it can't be done. It can be done. I think it probably will need to be considered by the village board because there will be pressure to do that with children walking in the roads in the morning to school, not on the sidewalk. But there will be challenges both political and engineering wise in installing sidewalks. And one of the things that will have to be looked at probably as well. We want to put in safe routes to school with walkways. What are the routes that make the most sense in terms of being able to engineer them and then deal with the politics of including those sidewalks in? You had mentioned the potential of safe routes to school grants, and those. I'm not sure if those are still available, but they may well be still available, and they can help assist in the cost of installation of sidewalks and other things that provide safe access for students going to schools.
If I can just say, I don't know if you don't in a way, the notion of, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I mean this in a real way, there is no free lunch, is in the referendum which said no responsibility financially to the school. We are slicing and dicing our budget here to make it balanced, and adding that extra responsibility is, are we going to not do a street, which has potholes in it because we have to do this? There is a responsibility to us. It isn't free to the taxpayer. There is going to be costs, and we have to realize that. And whichever way we go, they're not hidden costs, they're real costs as a result of this project, which is not to say yay or nay, it's just that's what it is. So to make it free, or a sense of it's not going to cost you a dime, that's
Wayne, did you want to speak?
Well, I have a question on the sidewalk ones before I do. You brought up the sidewalk issue, my wife didn't even answer it. You say some people may go against it or not. I'm not against sidewalks. I have over 160 foot of frontage right there on 8th Street. That would be a lot of sidewalk. Whether I want it or not, will I pay for that sidewalk? If you put it in, or at least 50% of it, like I did with her? Is that the general rule? The village pay for sidewalk.
Actually, the way the special assessment is with sidewalk, if there is no sidewalk, then the village puts in the first sidewalk. If there is sidewalk and it needs to be replaced, then the homeowner gets special assessed. It's the same way with curb and gutter. If there's no curb and gutter in front of your property and then curb and gutter gets put in, the village handles costs. If there's curb and gutter that needs to be replaced as part of the road.
That's not the way it's treated. When we finally got curb and gutter work in front of my residence and the rest of 8th Street, it took me 5 years to pay that off.
Yeah, we have gone through this. They did things, how many years ago was that?
I've been in there over 30 years. So
Yeah, so it's over the years, it's the special
And the
assessment.
second thing, so you put one in, I'm fine with it, it goes in. And do I have the maintenance of it? Because I'm gonna tell you, I'm not gonna get up at 6 in the morning and shovel it, because I do all hand shoveling. It takes me till late into the day now, then retired, to get my in-drive shovel. And I'm responsible for getting that clear for the kids at 7:30 in the morning to school.
Normally, it's the responsibility of the property owner
Okay.
to maintain and shovel the sidewalks.
But I hope you have a certain amount of time, because I'll be damned if I get up at 5:30 in the morning to shovel. Do I have 24 hours after a snowfall? Under ordinance.
I think the ordinance says that you have 24 hours. to
Okay,
shovel
that's all I want to know. If there's a blizzard or a good snowstorm, I get retired, get up at 5 in the morning and have to shovel the sidewalk. But in light of that, I would rather see a sidewalk there because I see how many people and dogs walk on the street every day. Now, I know I need the mic, I think you can hear me when I talk. I'm not going to be a squeaky wheel because I have to go home to my wife in 2 hours anyway. And I guess the only thing that upsets me is the lack of long-range plan, this whole thing. This referendum took place 18 months ago, and I just assumed seen that school built up there by now. So this whole thing, access, baffles me. Now, if it goes into Winlock, which would definitely impact me, that's fine, but please take a hard look at it. If you look at that diagram that the school provided today, you can see that 12th Avenue comes right into my property. That's fine. But as an example, if we're going to put it real close there, go for it. I would much rather have a road there than the eyesore that's been there for 30 years when that Winlock area was overgrown with brush and whatnot. I mow down as much as I can. But right now, 8th Street, village is going to have to reconsider because they come up 12th Avenue. That gravel and snow gets pushed up into my yard. There was no Winlock when I moved in there. I was a dead-end street. The other thing there, that Winlock comes up. If you put a road there, great. Maybe 50% of the people will begin stopping at the stop sign when Winlock comes up through. And if any of you are walking up there, you know these spots. You say, over 50% of people come right up Winlock and go by. Do I care? No, I'm in the yard mowing. But I have 5 grandkids that came around my yard. And I have to warn them that stop sign means nothing, so don't be stepping in the yard if someone comes up through there. So, that said, I'm all for the school, but I'd like to see some answers start coming from one of the 2 directions soon. Because I think this is, it's appalling to me that it's taken this long and we're still, it looks like a standstill to me. So that said, if you want to go through Winlock, go through. Yeah. Just be careful when you come up 8th Street, you're going to do a really funny turn to get down to Winlock to come in from there. And you do it more far to you. Be a lot cleaner than that field that's over here right now.
Okay, Blake, thank you. Chairman Johnson?
So before I begin my comments, I just want
talk about the
Shelley,
issue
excuse
of the
me.
access point. Yeah?
A little closer, please. No, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay. I'll stand.
Put them real close to you.
So what I was saying, better? What I was saying is that, again, I'm not here to speak out against the school. I voted for the new school, but my concern is the access points and the things that we discussed at the July 19th meeting, which still, in my mind, hold true today. So, I think that we need to approach this in a fiscally responsible way, not just for the school district, but for the village. I think the issue before us is that at the end of the day, as, I don't know, I think it was Peggy, you said there's no free lunch, right? This isn't going to be a zero cost for village residents. There are going to be costs incurred by the village and pushed onto the taxpayers of the village that are not going to be shared by the district and the township outside the village. So at the July 19th board meeting, as the minutes reflect, there were a number of objections brought up to the 8th Street and 11th Avenue access point, including but not limited to the safety concerns, which I think have been talked about already tonight, so I won't really spend time on that. But the infrastructure concerns. So earlier, you mentioned that the 9th Avenue project costs between $1.3 and $1.4 million for the village this year, correct? If we move forward, finish it up. If we move forward, I think that we're going to be facing the same type of cost to do the exact same type of project on 10th Avenue, on 12th Avenue, and on 8th Street, all the way through. 8th Street from Highway 39 to 9th Avenue has to be widened. It's not up to code today. It's not officially, I don't think, even considered a road, despite the fact that the village maintains it, plows it. So we have that has to be taken into consideration. So let's just say those three projects account for another $3.3 million at least, if not closer to $4 million. Again, all borne by the residents of this village. And with all due respect to the school board and the school administration, other than the two people that you had speak here this evening, the vast majority of those individuals do not live within the village limits and are not affected by these added costs. They live in the township or outside the community. So they're not bearing the cost. The residents of the village of New Glarus are bearing the cost. So I think that there are other things that we had talked about, the need for traffic control. As Dwayne said, nobody stops at that stop sign. I mean, I live in that neighborhood. I walk those streets every day with my dog. And I, too, agree that nobody stops there. There would have to be probably another police officer placed there. So now you're going to have a police officer there and a police officer directing traffic at the existing grade school. So again, who bears the cost of that? The residents of the village. I have a few other things that I've listed here, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to that basic argument. They don't want to invest the money to put the road in on Leclerc Valley Road as an option, but at least that would be a shared cost between the village and the township. And at the end of the day, if we really plan to expand and include a development up by the new school, Leclerc Valley is going to have to be fixed anyway and made into a standard road. So we're going to incur all of these costs today, only in 3 years from now, to spend that 2.1 or 2.5 million, whatever it is, at that point in time, to upgrade Leclerc Valley Road. Because those two access points will not serve not only the district, but the new school, but they will not serve a development in that neighborhood or that area. So while obviously, I and several of the other people kind of in this corner of the crowd, right, that live in the neighborhood, are personally affected by this, it really is everyone in the village at the end of the day who is going to end up paying the costs for the options that are being presented and recommended by the school tonight. So I hope the village board will remain diligent and take that into consideration and in their decision-making process.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Bill Saunders?
I did mine.
Nope. Okay. Travis Cisco?
Travis Cisco, lived in the village for 14 years. I'm in the school district for my 21st year. I know Shelley talked a lot about curb costs. What was the street project that was done this year? Was that 12? 9? I mean, I assume I incurred some cost with that, right? As a village resident. And the pump go out of the swimming pool this year. I assume I incurred some cost with that. I think people come into Blair for a couple different reasons. One, we got great businesses and a brewery and tourism, and they love to come here for a day or a weekend and spend time. I think the other reason they come here is they come here to move, okay, to raise their families, to live, and I think one of the big draws for raising a family in this community is our school. And this school is progress. Progress isn't easy. It's change. A lot of people don't like change, and it ain't cheap. And I'm one of the 70% of the residents in the village that voted for this referendum, and I'm willing to incur those costs. My kids aren't going to go to that school. They're past that age. But I know for future generations it's going to be better, and it's going to be better for our community as a whole. And I think we have to be willing to accept the change, and we have to be willing to accept the progress. And you're right, Peg, it doesn't come, it's not zero cost to the people in town. They all voted for this, and 70% of them voted yes. I don't think they were all naive and thought that this was going to be a zero cost project. I think the district did a good job of saying, no, your taxes are going to raise, but I don't think anybody here is thinking that it's just going to happen overnight. So if you want progress, you're going to have to pay for it. So I hope you'll support the school and their decisions.
Okay, Brandon Lakewood?
I guess I'm just kind of going back to the meeting from July yet, and I think the concerns are still with safety. I mean, I don't know what's changed. I mean, the sidewalks, have been talked about, but no real plan to commit to any sidewalks in any short-term, long-term, whatever we're talking about. The other issue that I see with like Lakewood Valley and them, but with the cons and the grade and the limited site and everything else, I mean, I understand that school is at a grade. I mean, the school is going to be where it's going to be at the elevation. Whether you take existing roads up 10th Avenue to get to that elevation, that probably, that I know are being hazardous now, or you take Lakewood Valley and go up the road and you construct roads that, address those safety and safety issues. Or you're going up this road. Same thing, you're going up the same grade, you're getting to the same elevation, but you're using existing roads that are deemed hazardous now, or you create a new road that will be safer for the children and for the buses and for, emergency vehicles and everything else. So I just wanted to point that out there. But I think we're still back on the same thing as far as safety for the kids and the pedestrians, and I just don't see where that's safe.
Travis Zimmerman?
High school.
Okay. Well, that's all the people that want to speak. I guess now it's up to the board to discuss.
it's very short, so it's not difficult to read. This is a letter from Kelly Schwab at the Pinocchio and Kinder King.
Can everybody hear that?
This is a letter that the village was provided from the Pinocchio and Kinder King law office in the role. And I'll just read it to you because it's really short. Dear Attorney Schwab, I haven't heard back from the surveyor who I asked to view the survey you provided me together with pre-existing surveys, hoping to hear what his thoughts are. If your survey is accurate, we very well may have an adverse possession claim raised by my client. I am giving this matter all due speed, however, the surveyor is behind on his work. As soon as I have his opinion, more than likely, we will be initiating an adverse possession action in the County Circuit Court. Very true. Yours, Gregory this letter just indicates that potentially there'll be an adverse possession action filed in the County Circuit Court. We don't know that.
Can we define some stuff here real quick?
Pardon me?
Can we define some of these terms? Adverse possession action.
So sure, I can tell you what it is, and anybody can do this. Whether would be successful or not is another entirely different question. But someone can do that. So what a person is saying when they're claiming adverse possession is that they have used property that is not theirs, it's not under their ownership, but have maintained it, owned it, or whatever it might be, for enough time that they have a claim, or they believe they have a claim for adverse possession, which is, well, actually, this property is mine, not yours, because I've been taking care of it, I've been whatever the claim may be, that I think this property actually should belong to me, shouldn't belong to you. And so that, it's a high hurdle to be able to actually have, and not an attorney, but it's a high hurdle to be able to claim that. Not to claim it. It's pretty easy to claim it. It's not hard to claim it. It costs money. We've got to go through the process to do that. The success of that is something one doesn't know until the courts would decide. But from I guess from the village's standpoint, that's not something we may be concerned about it, but we're really not involved in it. Only to the point that when the village would accept the dedication of a public right-of-way, or for that matter, potentially approve a private access, wherever it might be, we're going to want a good, clean title, and then that's what the village would be provided, would be when a certified survey map was completed, and a title search done, and those things gone through, the village would be assured that if the village is receiving the property as a dedication, this dedication can occur because the title is clear, and just like when you buy a house and you look for your title, do the title search and make sure you got a clean title, or if there's any clause on it, you're aware of it, or if there's any easements or things like that we all as property owners want to know. It would be the same kind of process. So at the point in time that the village would accept, do the final acceptance of a dedication of right-of-way or a private drive, we would have the information that would be necessary to know that, we can rightfully own this property. There aren't any liens or something else going on, or an adverse possession claim that's not been taken care of. And our attorney would be reviewing that to make sure that those things were okay. So at any rate, in this case, that this property owner may be doing that, they can do that, that's their right to do that, and I'm sure the school district would be responding to that, if they would need to respond to it, and at the point in time, they would do a final accept the dedication of the property, we would have the information that we needed, that we knew what we were getting and what we weren't getting. And so I think that's what will happen as kind of things going forward. And does that answer?
Thank you, I think that's exactly what it says in the dictionary.
You tested it.
Is there any discussion from the board? To this issue? No, not really.
I'm going to make a motion that since this is still potentially being litigated, that we table this until the litigation is complete.
Doesn't seem like that's necessary, but you just think it's a good idea.
Well, I mean, if you were buying a home and you were going to put a down payment on it, and a person said, well, I have a couple of liens and I'm on litigation, but I'll take your down payment.
I mean, usually things get tied up in courts, this will be a long, long time.
Well, they can't do anything until it's tied and untied.
I think it concerns one option, so, I mean, there are other options you can consider other than.
I think as Carl said, it really doesn't have the effect on our actions. So, I'm trying to speak loud, but it doesn't work.
It's all there.
As Carl said, I don't think the litigation has any effect on our actions. It's between the parties that are litigating and not us. And what we're trying to decide, essentially, bottom line, is an access point for the school's property. So I don't think the motion, and certainly the purpose, and I may be on line speaking before a second, but that's what I think.
I agree with what
I think we're going to find out really a second on the motion first.
Oh!
If I don't get a second, then it fails.
Yeah, that's fine. I just thought we moved somewhere, and nobody was saying anything, so. If you're out there as an option, no one has to do a second. You can move on.
Okay, if we don't have a second, motion fails. Okay,
Well, I did like what Brandon had said, that at least for me, the rationale, last time we voted on this, is the same. It's identical. We're talking about an access point. And that's it. We're not equating it to education, whether we're in favor of it or not. Those things aren't equivalent. Talking about an access point, and that's it. And I do think the concerns raised with this proposed access point are extremely valid. There's a lot of issues. A lot. It still seems to me to be silent. Feel the same way.
the only difference can be is if we accept the dedicated street, then we maintain it and follow, and it's all of us. If we would have given them access point the last time they came, would have been all their. Oh, I just said, if we accept the dedicated street, then it's up to us to maintain it and plow it. you know, if we would have accepted the first one they brought forward, then be their street out to 8th. So now,
Oh, with all the safety concerns, I'm not about that. I'm in favor of something. Cut costs of farming over safety. Well, it is.
I don't know if a dedicated street is going to be, other than the width, of our statute is going to be much different than what they were proposing the first time around. No, go ahead.
I think that the village can, whether that's a private access or a public access, whether it's public right of way or private access, private drive, the village through site plan approval can regulate the width of the street, can talk about putting sidewalks in, can talk about whether the village maintains it as a public right of way or whether it's maintained as a private drive. So I think either way, those issues could be addressed. No matter whether it's Winlock or 11th or wherever, any private drive could be dedicated at a later point to the village when development occurs that would, kind of push that along. So, it's possible that, I don't know if the school district would agree with me or not, but I think for a public street, obviously, we build it to 32 feet wide at the narrowest, we would put some sidewalks in, or it would be built to village standards. I think that if it were a private access, regardless of the location, that likely the school district would build it to the standard as long as it was reasonable, that the village would want. So at least if it were public, and we said we need it to be 32 feet wide, we would like a sidewalk, we would like a terrace, whatever, and it was within the realm of reasonable engineering and cost, that the school district would likely say private or public would build it to that standard. I could be wrong. I don't need to speak, I guess I am for that, but I don't need to speak for this.
Let me just say, I think this is a hard thing for all of us. That's why we're not saying anything, obviously. But we can do hard things. Those who have said that perhaps the village board is not in favor of the school, I'm going to speak for most of the people that can you hear me?
Yeah.
Most of the people that have talked to, there isn't anybody that is not in favor of the school. I mean, we all agree that it would be a good thing. However, there are other good things too. There is growth, there is prosperity as a result of the school. There is also balanced budgets, which is a good thing. There is also an auditor who has told me, an auditor for this village, who has said he has never seen in his 30 years of auditing the amount of responsibility financially placed on taxpayers in this community and everywhere else. I'm more interested in the burden of the taxpayer. I see dedicating this street as a burden to a taxpayer because it brings up more skeletons than I want to resurrect. So I am going to make a motion to not dedicate this public right of way in the vicinity of Lucky Valley to provide access.
I'll second.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Let me get this clear. You're making a motion not to accept the dedicated street.
Right.
Does everybody understand? Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
To be fair, we have the possibility of looking through other access points, correct? Because right now, it seems that we are voting on something so specific. Whereas we do have other options, and, I mean, for my part, I know it sounds a little intense, but, in terms of developing Leather Valley Road, yes, we have a much bigger cost. $2.1 million is a lot. We're talking about it is $500,000 difference compared to what we currently did for our road construction project, manufacturing, correct? And every other year, we're planning road projects because we have to, and this is good. It's part of our plan is that we are developing roads every other year. It ensures us that we get the state funding, correct, like grants. So if we prioritize developing this road so that we can further develop outside of and encourage so much more growth, which we list desperately, I think we need to have a school built. And I think by encouraging, in addition to developing that road, which is going to be needed to be developed, we can also encourage future development of houses, more revenue for the taxpayers in the future. Since we're already spending this money, $500,000 difference just to continue encouraging that development, to me seems worthwhile, or at least worth discussion.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that one there. I know I keep referring to Joe here in regards to our roadways that we have and how a lot of them are prone to feet. And I understand that part of what I was trying to look up here is our next road project. Do you know when that is here? Our next road project?
We're going to try it next year.
Next year. Now, that's not currently set in stone for what project that we're doing, so we could actually allocate that funding towards Leather Valley with the caveat of acquiring part that is owned by the township, is that correct? Because that's the hiccup that you presented earlier in this meeting.
That's what the township.
That's how large is this?
It's about 800 feet. 800 feet, yeah. They have a full section of the road and then it narrows to half the section, or half of the road, and then it widens to the rest of the road. If you just take the length of it, it's about 800 feet.
And then, I guess, follow-up question then for the school representatives here. You guys, second to the last page or something like that, your access point summary. Leadville Valley has nothing on that, so if we end up purchasing that or acquiring that roadway, and then getting it to that standard, we could get it to the village ordinance, right? We get it to those Wisconsin DOT standards, provide the proper sight lines, probably not walkability. Probably become a public roadway. Question on what you guys want to say for future development for infrastructure for the village, there's a possibility for future development. I don't know if that roadway going down from your school district would also increase your future developments for additional classrooms during your next referendum. But that wouldn't obviously be able to approve that either. Is this how I'm understanding this?
Let me see if I can summarize your question, make sure that I'm answering it. The first part of it was, if the improvements are made to Leather Valley Road, if the improvements are made to Leather Valley Road, would it then start to tick those squares on that? I guess the short answer to that question is yes. However, the longer answer to that question is, the school is ready to be built, and we are required by the village to have 2 exit points. We have 1 point approved currently at the north point of 10th Avenue. Of the 3 southern points, Leather Valley Road is currently, in its current condition, not acceptable for school travel. And we cannot wait for a project or road improvement to catch up to the school's improvement. The costs for this school as we delay just continue to escalate. Okay, so of the 3 southern points, Leather Valley Road in its current condition is unsafe for school traffic. It's not suitable. 8th and 11th, there's a lot of conversation today about 8th and 11th being unsafe. 8th and 11th meets all Wisconsin DOT engineering standards. It meets all village ordinance. It provides sidewalks that take you to the front door. of the school. The issue around its rejection previously was, it was a variance because it was a private driveway. Pat Rank recommended the driveway option for conditional approval, so it met those standards that it was reviewed. Of the 3 southern points that are available to us, 8 and 11 far and away is the safest position to access the school.
So if you got approval tonight, when would the school be built?
We would be able to bid in 30 days.
When would it be built?
Construction would start March, February if possible.
And completed?
Completion, I'm
Not too many issues going on.
I'm not a general contractor, but completion, I would guess, would take another year. But I just want to be kind of see where you're going with it. We need to have an approved site plan to move forward. We cannot engineer a driveway to a road that doesn't exist.
So, I have a question.
Can I defer this here to Joe real quick? I know he's got a little bit more knowledge in regards to the roadways in regards to that.
All right, so we've looked at what we're at. 2 point, that was it 2.1? 2.1. Like you said, there's cuts and balances here. If you take $2.1 million and you put it towards Lumber Valley, what are you going to do to the infrastructure and the roads that are in the village? Okay? This is for the school down there. We don't want to stop this school. We want to give them an access point. We denied the access coming in at 8th and 11th. One, behind a private drive coming into an intersection. That is against an ordinance. Okay, we denied it. Now we have to give this school access. Okay? I personally, with access to the private or to the public road that they have driven up right now as a cul-de-sac, which is the absolute debate that's crazy. Cul-de-sacs are the past. Hammerheads are a big thing now. It's a straightaway for storm. It's a straightaway for plowing. It's a straightaway for any infrastructure that's being put in. So what a hammerhead is it goes straight in, and then it has 2 outlets on it, and we can decide how long it has to be. Okay? The reason why we get rid of cul-de-sacs anymore is because when we have to go back into them and do any work with them, it's a lot more money. Radiuses, everything like that costs you money. Everything. So if we look at that, I believe that we should take Ledler Valley Road and throw it. I really do. Go ahead.
On a positive note, whatever the school is saving as a result of not having to invest in the 11th and 8th, they could invest with us in the Lebanon Road, and then we would have perhaps, a little bit more money to work with, and then perhaps that 10th Avenue could be the emergency exit. I'm just saying. But, in answer to Travis's question, I guess, a little bit, I just want to clarify that it isn't really our fault that we're at this point. It's the topic never arose until we never knew anything about it. So it isn't that we're dragging our feet. We're just trying to make the right choices for. I have never seen the plan come to this board until a number of months ago.
So, a lot of it I do agree with you. Some of it is, so I get the school board's point. We got to move on this. I mean, our wastewater treatment plant at one time, 4.1, 4.2 million. That building now is 5.6. 1 year. What do you think the $29 million referendum is at? Now, it's going a lot higher. From us even doing the utility thing for them, how many months ago, that wire has increased 60%. That's another thing that they need to look at. Everything here is going to get added up every month that we postpone this. And I really seriously think that we need to give them some kind of access point. The 10th Avenue access point has always been on our radar. We had no problem with 10th Avenue whatsoever. And at one time we denied them, and fire department and police department thought that was a bad idea, having one access in. I totally agree with that. I see what happens every day on 2nd Avenue or 2nd Street down by those schools. If we're going to have that much traffic coming in and out of that school, that's going to hinder that so bad. So we give them the 2nd access point. So we denied them on 8th and 11th, but that doesn't mean we can't deny them at the access of Woodward. The picture that they showed in that diagram that they gave you all, I can draw numbers on that. I've been building roads for the state, anything from interstate commerce all the way down to little streets for 20 years with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. You know my past. I looked at that and say, well, somebody drew lines up way too close to the intersection that's coming into Dwayne Schober's house that shouldn't be there. And then the other access lines are going into somebody's private land down on the other side, which used to be Gary Falls. I think that those access lines should be drawn out a little bit different so they do not hinder anybody's property, so we don't have to worry about easements, we don't have to worry about buying land. That's just more of us. We don't need it. If we could draw something up and put it in at Winlock, I think we're going to be a win-win situation. And we work with them. I really do. I know at one point there was an issue about turning left. I think one of the issues about turning left was we just don't want to see the traffic going back in to our area. 14th Avenue and Winlock are wider streets. We would like to detour that traffic to go back down the wider streets, to go down those bigger streets. We don't want them to go on A Street, which is narrower, no curb gutter, any of that. We just don't want to see that. We also have two sides of the funeral where funerals happen. We don't need traffic going through a cemetery disrespectful all the time. We don't see that traffic now. We increase this traffic going through there. That could be another issue. We just did a road project and we stopped all construction if there was anything going on in the cemetery. We made them stop. That was on us. But they respected it. So if you look at it, I would seriously think that we should seriously sit down with these people and look at Winlock and try to give them an access point. It's going to be expensive, but the aspect of it is they've got to work with us as much as we got to work with them. And I don't care if it's a public road and we give them a hammerhead, or if we give it a private road, which they have all access to themselves. They plow it, they maintain it. It's not on us. But I seriously think the board should look at that aspect, and we should work with it. Because I don't want to see the school district paying $32 million, $40 million in a couple of years. I really do. And as your sidewalk issues that you see, we have sidewalks that go to Highway 39. And if we want to bring sidewalks up through there, that is going to be ungodly for ADA, is what you said before. But we're only putting sidewalks in when we're redoing the streets. We're not pushing the point of putting sidewalks in where we don't need to. We're not doing that until we redo the streets. We just don't have that budget. And we're cutting budgets again this year. So I agree with someone, but I do agree that we need to help them get on their way. I really do. So I don't know if the school would be willing to look at Winlock, but I really wish we would sit down the path and try to work that out.
Our traffic engineer did the study of Winlock this year, so I mean, if he could just and have
The reason the access at Windlock, the reason that the roadway was pushed so far to the north and or so far to the south was to allow for sight lines, safe sight lines. So in other words, if a vehicle wants to pull out and turn to the left, they have a certain distance that they need to be able to see to the right for a vehicle coming around that bend on Windlock. And if you push the roadway to the south, then you don't have those sight lines. That's why we pushed it as far, the recommendation was to put it as far to the north as possible. There's, when you push it all the way to the north, there's also another sight distance needed, and that's the stopping sight distance. So that's the vehicle that is coming from the south, around the bend, heading north, and the roadway, the new roadway is to the left. There may be a vehicle that wants to turn left into the school. There has to be a certain distance from the back of that car to the vehicle coming around the corner for that vehicle coming around the corner to see that car and stop. So it's barely met. That stopping sight distance is barely met with that northernmost location. And it's when I say it's barely met, it's met for a 25-mile-an-hour post speed limit. Usually when you design roadways, you do it for a design speed of 30 miles an hour. So, which would require 200 feet. You barely have 200 feet. And that doesn't include vehicles parked there, turning left. So that was the reason for pushing that as far to the north. What I was trying to say is that if you're going to consider Windlock, it has to be as far to the north as possible. Having it further to the south is, I would consider not safe.
And what would happen if we knocked out the speed limit?
Or if we make it right turn only out of the school.
Initially, when I talked with Drake and Pat about this, when I first brought this up, my initial plan was that I would like to see it come in on 10th Avenue and be a one-way street to come out on Windlock. No turn to the left. Now, he brought up a good point with if there's a car parked turning into the new road at Windlock. So you're going north on Windlock and you're going to turn in. That is a very good point. But where we can work on it is slower speed limit.
So, if you put it as far north on Windlock as you can, you came out and turned left, we're talking from me to the curtain behind you, you have a stop sign.
Right, I agree with you.
So you'd be pulling out with someone coming up on your rear end, you'd have to slam on your brakes for that stop sign that we're complaining about.
I totally agree with you. That's why I wanted to see that down farther. That way, nobody can go to the left. They can only
You
go
come
to the
right
right.
by my lane, when you want to come out, so that if you do turn left, you don't have to go left, you slam on your brakes.
Is there a reason why you're not doing the right turn?
Well, that was what.
That's with the right.
That's with the, that's why it's written, but he's talking about you want to go left, because people come up Windlock, you have to have a sight line. But if you go left, you're going to have to stop right away, unless you put a stop sign coming out. Yeah.
We talked about actually an intersection of 12 and 8. We would probably put a stop sign coming southbound, northbound, everything on that.
So Windlock would be straight through it.
I'm just putting my 2 cents in for you. It's something to think about.
So just to talk to the speed limit issue, just arbitrarily lowering the speed limit does not really solve any concerns because people will just ignore the lower speed limit. You can't be out there and enforce it all the time. It's something that if you're going to change speed limits, you need to change the character of the roadway as well. If it's just a sign that now it's 15 instead of 25, people are just going to ignore that sign. For the driveway itself, yes, around the corner with the Windlock, you have issues with what bringing traffic out. Anything there would have to dealt with looking at stopping site distance, the intersection site distance. All those things would have to be taken into consideration. Something I would just think about, and I have this just as a thought, there is going to be reconstruction on that curve anyways for utility construction. What if we had to consider a different way of bringing the intersection together, where we would make Windblock basically curve into the school itself, A would come in and T into Windblock? I don't know that that would be much any better, but it's another thought of if you wanted to have a discussion of something happening in this area.
One thing I'd like to add, and this doesn't affect me, but I do know one of the reasons people do not stop in the wintertime when they come up Winlock. If they stop there, I see a lot of people only get halfway up my hill and have to back all the way down and go down past the Lutheran Church. And myself, when I back out of my in-drive in the snowy weather, I do not try to go up 8th Street because you can't make it from a standstill for a lot of cars. So I just go down past the church on my way down. Well, that's one of the problems that stops at Winlock. That's a steep grade right there. You see a lot of cars probably when you're out plowing that are backing down that street because they can't make the hill.
Maybe we should just recollect the motions that we had in the vote.
I have one more question.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying we need to make it, just remind ourselves that we kind of diverted some details. So what, could you just read the motion?
Yes. The motion was made by Peggy to deny the public school dedicated, or public road access, seconded by Harry.
My question is just, when you speak of time being of the essence, for getting school buildings and not dictating what access points are preferable or in some cases ideal, if what we received is pending litigation potentially, what is the delay expected that?
Well, I guess.
I mean, I can speak to that. I mean, it's hard to predict what the delay is going to be. I mean, there's been written communication with the neighbor, and obviously there's been a response, and we are waiting to hear. It's not entirely clear what the claim is based on. I don't want to get too much into the merits of it. Obviously, the district feels strongly that it is the rightful owner, and we also, I will also add that, the district understands that before any dedicated right of way would be, dedicated to the village, that those issues would have to be resolved. So.
Right, and I guess just, questioning what is the general timeline with such litigation? I mean, as far as I understood, it can take a long time, so I just want to make sure that we're understanding that even if this were to move forward, like, we are still at a standstill pending this issue being solved.
It's so hard for me to say, to give you a timeline. It could be a month, it could be, yes, this litigation sometimes take a year. Yeah, I would not anticipate that it would take that long, but it's hard to predict that.
But the road wouldn't be formally dedicated until it's completed.
Yeah, I was just asking a question, and also, I'm just curious, is it the school district that is dealing with this?
Okay, this, so, we all understand Peggy's motion. You vote yes, you're voting to deny, and you vote no. You're voting no. Are we ready?
Sorry, can you read the motion one more time? Okay, trustee Cruz made a motion to deny or to not accept, I think she changed it to not accept the public street dedication. Trustee Janish seconded.
Okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote.
Michael Bell.
No.
Henry Janish.
Yes.
Peggy Cruz. Chuck Phillipson. Kaylee Walters.
Can you repeat it? I'm sorry. The double negatives are getting
Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's a big discussion point. I'm so sorry.
Sure. Peggy made the motion to not accept the public street dedication brought forward by the school district. Henry seconded it. So if you vote yes to our agreement, you will deny the public street dedication.
Okay, thanks.
Roger Troutman.
No. So what, 4-2?
Yes.
Peggy's motion passes to deny. Again. Okay, well, I think that about does it for us tonight. No residents report?